So people have a lot of questions. What really happened with Snow White?
The moment word got out that Disney's Snow White reboot might be pulled from theaters, people couldn't believe it was real.
After a long wait, Disney's new Snow White finally came out last week, and to put it mildly, my friends, this has been a colossal...
The moment news broke that Disney might be pulling its Snow White reboot from theaters, fans and critics alike were left in disbelief. It was hard to imagine that a major studio like Disney, with its decades of success in animated classics and live-action remakes, could pull the plug on a highly anticipated film so soon after its release. The news sent shockwaves through the entertainment world, sparking debates across social media and news outlets. This decision came in the wake of a disappointing box office performance, with Snow White failing to meet the massive expectations set for it despite a strong marketing campaign and the star power of Rachel Zegler in the lead role. The film struggled to attract audiences, leaving many to wonder if Disney's formula for success was starting to show cracks. As word spread, fans and critics alike questioned whether the reboot was just another in a long line of underwhelming reimaginings of Disney classics, or if there were deeper issues at play with the film being yanked from theaters so quickly. The future of the Snow White reboot and Disney's live-action strategy seems more uncertain than ever. Let me know if you'd like to adjust it further.
Has been absolutely horrifying. Like, I literally found myself feeling bad for them at times, that just shows you how terrible this has been. It is financially crumbling, financially failing. The reviews are genuinely horrible.
As soon as the news broke, countless fans and skeptics rushed online, desperately searching for any official statements from Disney about the Snow White reboot being pulled from theaters. Amid the chaos, Brett Cooper stepped into the conversation, immediately mocking Rachel Zegler at every turn. Her every move, both on and off screen, became fodder for relentless jabs. What started as a heated debate over the film's disappointing performance quickly escalated into a full-blown online spectacle, with fans and critics alike weighing in. The feud between Cooper and Zegler added even more fuel to an already intense situation.
And new controversies surrounding the production, surrounding the actresses in the film, are literally popping up every single day. They cannot outrun the curse.
Allegedly, the Snow White reboot's first week box office results were so dismal that theaters made the decision to pull it from their screens altogether. The film, a high-profile Disney project, was expected to dominate the box office, but instead, it faced a swift and unexpected decline in ticket sales. Word quickly spread that theater chains, seeing little return on their investment, no longer saw a reason to keep the film running in their venues. This is particularly shocking given Disney's reputation for churning out successful blockbusters, especially when it comes to their live-action reboots of animated classics. However, Snow White seemed to defy expectations in all the wrong ways despite a major promotional push and a star-studded cast, including Rachel Zegler in the titular role. The film struggled to attract audiences. Many pointed to a disconnect between the film's vision and what fans were hoping for, while others speculated that Disney's oversaturation of live-action reboots was beginning to wear thin with audiences. The film's swift removal from theaters raised serious questions about Disney's future strategies, leaving many to wonder if this could mark the beginning of a shift in the studio's once dominant film empire.
Is there one reason why this actually flopped? Was it because of politics and wokeness? Was this another woke flop, or was it simply just a terrible film that nobody wanted from the beginning?
Allegedly, the Snow White reboot's first week box office performance was so underwhelming that theaters quickly decided it wasn't worth keeping it on their screens. The film, a major Disney release, had all the makings of a hit, but its lackluster performance left many scratching their heads. Despite the high expectations and a strong promotional campaign, the numbers were dismal. Theater chains, seeing a lack of audience interest, opted to pull the film sooner than anticipated. This decision shocked many, especially considering it was a Disney picture known for its box office successes, leaving people to wonder what went wrong.
So I know we all want to talk about this Snow White. But I know that there is also another Snow White that I think you guys want me to talk about.
We're not talking about a slow fade out or a quiet acceptance that the film was bombing. The situation allegedly unfolded with alarming urgency. Rumors suggest that Snow White was yanked from theaters with the kind of swift action typically seen in high-stakes damage control scenarios. Distributors reportedly scrambled to remove showtimes almost as if they were trying to erase the film from the public eye before it did any more damage to Disney's reputation. The decision to pull it so quickly left many in shock, with some speculating that the film's performance had become a PR nightmare that Disney couldn't ignore.
Unfortunately, the only thing I can really say is that that is not my story to tell.
Hoping to minimize the embarrassment, Disney reportedly acted swiftly to remove Snow White from theaters after the number of unsold tickets became shockingly high. The situation was so bad that it was almost humiliating for the studio, adding fuel to the growing criticism. Online voices quickly joined in jeering at Disney for what many saw as an overreach in their attempt to capitalize on the live-action remake trend. Disney bit off more than they could chew became a common refrain. Meanwhile, the big question looming over the situation is how will this affect Disney's future projects and its relationship with audiences?
If you are somebody who, has a lot of publicity around you and your name's attached to a project, that means that you have a ton of control or a ton of intel, but usually that is not the case. Unless you are, Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively with all of the films, apparently.
Did Rachel Zegler's own comments push audiences away so drastically that the movie essentially self-destructed on day one? It may sound far-fetched, but that's exactly what some critics and fans are suggesting. There's growing speculation that Zegler's outspoken views and controversial remarks leading up to the film's release might have played a significant role in the film's rapid downfall. While it's difficult to pin the blame on any single factor, the timing of the backlash raised eyebrows. Could it be that her comments alienated potential viewers, contributing to the movie's disastrous box office performance? From the very beginning, the accusations are certainly swirling.
You don't get to dictate anything. You don't get to dictate if a film actually happens. You don't get to dictate when it is shot, how it is shot, if you can ever speak about it to the public. You are simply just there to show up and say your lines and look the way they want you to look.
And what comes next is the real shock factor, because all eyes turned on the star who was supposed to carry Snow White to glory. Rachel Zegler entered the Hollywood scene with enormous hype. She had it all: the voice, the look, and a strong presence that seemed tailor-made for the iconic role of Snow White. Her breakout performance in West Side Story had garnered significant attention, and she quickly became a rising star with Disney behind her and the role of a lifetime in her grasp. Expectations were sky high. But then came the controversy. Zegler's outspoken opinions and candid remarks during interviews and social media posts began to stir the pot. What was once seen as a fresh and empowered take on the character quickly turned into a divisive point of discussion. Instead of rallying fans to the film, some of her comments seemed to alienate potential audiences. And as the film bombed, the focus shifted away from the movie itself and directly onto Zegler. Critics began questioning whether her public persona, rather than her talent, had become the focal point of the film's failure. The backlash was swift, and it left many wondering, was Zegler's star power enough to save Snow White, or did it actually contribute to its downfall?
Kind of seems like maybe this path that I'm taking right now is the path that Rachel Zegler should have taken instead of just running her mouth for the last 3 years, which we are going to get into now.
Everything about Rachel Zegler seemed perfect for the role of a modern fairy tale princess. Her voice, her look, and her fresh energy. But then the chatter started, and things quickly took a turn. Zegler found herself in hot water after publicly calling the classic Snow White story outdated, a remark that sparked outrage among fans. The backlash was immediate, with many accusing her of disrespecting the beloved fairy tale. What was meant to be a progressive take on the character soon became a point of contention. Fans erupted online questioning whether Zegler's controversial comments had sabotaged the film before it even hit theaters.
This has been going on since 2022, since September of 2022. That is when this all first exploded.
Calling her remarks disrespectful to Disney's legacy, fans and critics alike quickly turned against Rachel Zegler. What was once an exciting casting decision now seemed to backfire as the backlash grew louder. Zegler, who had initially been praised for her talent and unique take on Snow White suddenly found herself at the center of a controversy she couldn't escape. Her comments about the classic Snow White being outdated didn't sit well with longtime Disney fans who saw the original story as a cornerstone of the studio's legacy. Instead of championing the fairy tale for a new generation, Zegler's words seemed to alienate the very audience Disney hoped to attract. Behind closed doors, rumors began to pile up about the growing tension within the production. There were whispers of friction between Zegler and the studio, as well as dissatisfaction from Disney executives who had hoped to capitalize on the film's nostalgic appeal. It was reported that Disney had underestimated the impact of Zegler's comments and the power of fan loyalty to the original tale, with Snow White underperforming at the box office and Zegler's persona under fire. What was supposed to be a triumph for the actress and Disney turned into a tangled PR nightmare.
Rachel Zegler, her comments first exploded on the scene about Snow White back at the Disney D23 Expo. The clips went viral of her saying, "Snow White doesn't need a man, she's not going to fall for the prince."
People claimed that Rachel Zegler was spouting manipulative lines in interviews, positioning herself as the champion of modern values, while in their view, trampling on the traditional fanbase. Her critics argued that her comments were carefully crafted to align with a more progressive narrative, but at the cost of alienating longtime Disney fans who cherished the classic Snow White story. On the other hand, her supporters maintained that she was simply being outspoken and authentic, unafraid to challenge outdated norms. They argued she was trying to bring a fresh perspective to the character, even if it meant ruffling some feathers. The divide between fans was stark, and Zegler's every word seemed to fuel the growing controversy.
Forgotten those clips, this is what I'm referring to.
No longer 1937. It is
Not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can.
Rachel Zegler insisted she wanted to update archaic ideas, aiming to give Snow White a more modern and relevant twist for today's audience. She argued that the traditional fairy tale needed to evolve in order to reflect the values of inclusivity and empowerment. However, her critics quickly snapped back, saying no one asked for that. They felt Zegler's attempt to overhaul a beloved classic was both unnecessary and disrespectful to the original story's cultural significance. The backlash was swift, with many feeling that Disney was trying to force a modern agenda into a narrative that didn't need it. By the time filming wrapped, online forums were ablaze with distrust towards Zegler, with countless threads and comments expressing disappointment and anger. What was supposed to be a moment of triumph for the actress turned into a full-scale public relations nightmare. Ironically, Zegler's efforts to redefine Snow White as a progressive, strong character seemed to alienate the very audience she hoped to inspire. Instead of celebrating the character's timelessness, she became embroiled in a fight over the relevance of tradition versus modernity. As the film's release approached and its box office results faltered, many began to question whether Zegler's controversial comments were a key factor in the film's disastrous reception, turning what should have been a celebration into a contentious battleground for differing ideologies.
I could be president one day. I hate that. I just want to be president. That screams Disney princess. Oh my god, I'm literally getting enraged. Once again, I feel like I'm back in 2022.
The meltdown that followed felt almost destined as the controversy surrounding Rachel Zegler grew. Brett Cooper swooped in, fueled by a gut-level need to say, "I told you so." Cooper, known for her unapologetically bold opinions, seized on Zegler's statements, using them as fuel for her critiques. She didn't hold back, calling out Zegler's remarks as part of a larger issue within Hollywood's shift toward wokeness and its potential harm to classic stories. Cooper's sharp commentary quickly gained traction, further polarizing the already heated debate. What started as a film flop had now become a full-scale cultural clash.
Yeah, the entire film's about a love story. That's what the point of the film is, and I'm sorry that chivalry and a man pursuing you is now deemed as stalking.
Brett Cooper wasted no time in diving headfirst into the drama, seizing on Zegler's comments about the original Snow White being cringe or too archaic. Cooper didn't just respond, she dismantled Zegler's words with a level of disdain, labeling them as arrogant trash talk. To Cooper, Zegler's dismissal of a beloved classic seemed not only unnecessary but downright disrespectful to generations of fans who cherished the original Disney film. For Cooper, the whole situation situation was more than just a casting controversy. It was symbolic of the broader cultural shift that had taken hold of Hollywood, where classic stories were being reimagined, and in her view, often destroyed in the name of progress. The rumor that the movie bombed hard at the box office only added fuel to the fire. Cooper, always quick to pounce on what she saw as a Hollywood failure, was visibly pleased by the outcome. She reveled in every second of the unfolding drama, almost as if the movie's failure validated her predictions about the dangers of forcing a modern agenda onto timeless tales. As Snow White's dismal performance played out, Cooper's commentary became a go-to source for those looking to voice their own frustrations with the film and its controversial lead to her. It was a fitting result for a film that tried to rewrite history.
Just so much to unpack here. Like, the most iconic Disney role ever. I feel like you should kind of have some sort of reverence for the original production, for what it meant.
She reportedly shared a biting reaction video that quickly went viral. In the clip, she can be seen rolling her eyes and mocking snippets of Dolph Ziggler's interviews, particularly his attempts to update the classic fairy tale with empowering messages for the stars involved. Ziggler, who has become somewhat of a symbol for overcoming obstacles in the wrestling world, was caught in a series of interviews where he expressed optimism and offered insights into the industry's evolving narrative. However, rather than appreciating his attempts to empower others, the video captures her exaggerated eye rolls and sarcastic comments aimed at his messages, dismissing them as overly self-congratulatory. The video didn't stop there, though. As the footage continued, her tone grew more biting, and the mocking escalated into a full-blown roast of Ziggler's personal brand. She skewered everything from his persona to his career decisions, calling out his attempts at rebranding as cringe-worthy and out of touch. Despite the clear venom in her words, the video garnered mixed reactions from fans, with some finding it funny while others questioned whether it crossed a line. Regardless, it became the talk of social media, with people eagerly debating whether the roast was justified or unnecessarily harsh.
She is not Caucasian, she is a Latina, she is half Colombian, and so people were like, why were you cast in the first place? We just had a black Little Mermaid, now we're having a Latina Snow White, and she is literally called Snow White. This doesn't make sense. So that was happening.
Cooper labeled the fiasco as the ultimate taste of your own medicine. In her view, Ziggler had turned on the beloved classic, and in doing so alienated his fans, who in turn turned on her. What followed was a surprising shift in public sentiment. Suddenly, people began rallying behind Brett Cooper's bold and unapologetic approach. They applauded her for daring to speak out, praising her for calling out what they saw as Ziggler's misguided attempt to modernize the fairy tale. Her brazen stance earned her a loyal following, with fans lauding her honesty and boldness in confronting the star.
Again, Rachel didn't even seem like she cared or liked the source material. I mean, that is just far from a graceful Disney princess-like promotion. It's far from what you would think Disney wants.
But that wasn't the whole story. Behind the scenes, a different narrative was unfolding. Whispers of an explosive meltdown began circulating as tensions reached a boiling point. Sources close to the situation revealed that the backlash wasn't just confined to the public eye. In private, Ziggler was said to be furious, feeling blindsided by Cooper's scathing video. Those familiar with the dynamics noted that it wasn't just the roast itself that triggered his anger, but the way it threatened his carefully crafted image. Ziggler, who had spent years building his brand around being relatable and overcoming obstacles, was taken aback by Cooper's harsh criticism. It was a blow he wasn't prepared for. As the fallout deepened, rumors of a behind-the-scenes clash between Ziggler and his team circulated. Allegedly, he felt betrayed by the very fans he'd worked to cultivate, believing they had turned on him too easily. On Cooper's side, sources claimed she wasn't backing down, believing she was simply speaking the truth, that others were afraid to voice. The tension between the two sides grew, with neither willing to apologize or backtrack. The situation escalated further when key insiders hinted that a major confrontation was brewing, possibly even leading to a public dispute. The drama was far from over. Industry whispers suggest Rachel Zegler had a meltdown when news of Snow White's poor ticket sales hit. Sources claim she flooded executives with furious calls demanding to know who approved the marketing strategy. Allegedly, she even singled out her co-stars, accusing them of overshadowing her press coverage. Random leaks hinted at secret voicemails where Ziegler's voice reportedly shook with anger, accusing incompetent people of ruining her big break. The entire fiasco seemed loaded with drama, and production staff reportedly dreaded every new notification, fearing another angry message from Zegler's camp. As the situation unfolded, online speculators began painting Zegler as someone who would do anything to avoid accountability. "She's always got an excuse," they said. Zegler's team denies the allegations, but the turmoil didn't stop there. The meltdown was just one piece of a much darker puzzle Disney had to address quickly. When rumored box office numbers surfaced still low, they were being called the biggest flop of the year. Disney executives reportedly went into full crisis mode. Insiders spoke of a frantic closed-door meeting where executives scrambled to find a way to spin the news without tarnishing the studio's legendary reputation. The tension was palpable, with one unverified source claiming the sweat could be felt dripping off their brows. In the midst of this chaos, a bold decision was made: pull Snow White from theaters before its dismal performance could be plastered across every entertainment headline. By removing the film so suddenly, Disney left it ambiguous whether the theaters themselves decided to pull the plug. Corporate suits were determined not to let it appear as if they had retreated, so the narrative remained murky. Part rumor, part corporate dodge. Naturally, skeptics weren't buying it. Critics accused Disney of orchestrating a covert cover-up, calling it a strategic move to bury the disaster. One alleged insider even claimed that Disney was hoping to sweep the